Hello, I'm Landon Chung, and today we are going to debug our C# console applications. Last time we did the methods, now we are doing the debug part. All right, so most of it's going to be on the Microsoft Train platform, and I mostly just want to answer the questions. I don't really want to do all of the different challenges they have for us. We have our intro. Let's just move on and see if any of these have questions like here. All right, what is code debugging? I'm going to say a process to isolate and fix issues in code logic. It's not really to see if there's syntax errors or verify that it builds. All right, who is responsible for software testing? That would be both developers and testers. What happens if an exception isn't managed in code? What happens if an exception isn't managed in code? Oh, I think it will generate an error message and close. Like it'll stop the program. If the program throws an exception, it will just like close it. So I'm going to say B. Let's see here. Yep. All right. All three of these are right. Correct debugging and code debugging involves isolating and fixing logic issues in code. Software developers and testers share responsibility. And if an exception isn't managed in code, the runtime will display an error message. All right. Let's move on. All right. Here's some more questions. What is a debugger? It's a software tool used to observe and control the execution flow of a program. What is the primary benefit of using a debugger? A debugger enables developers to watch their application running and follow program execution one line of code at a time. What is one of the most important features of a debugger? Observation of your program state. What is the best way to find the root cause of a bug? Using a debugger. Yeah. All right. That should be all four of those right. Yes. Okay, let's move on. Here's some more questions. What is the purpose of catching an exception in C#? I like this one. To generate additional errors in a program. Yeah, of course. No, it's B. To take corrective action when an error occurs. Can a developer access the contents of an exception at runtime? I'm going to say C. They can be accessed, but not during the runtime. Because you can catch an exception with the catch blocks. All right, what happens when execution of a C# application results in a system error? Oh, if it's a system error, maybe it will crash and close. It's either that or B. Right, what is the relationship between the types of exception and the information it contains? Oh, it's either B or C. What comes first, chicken or the egg, is basically the question. I'm gonna say B. I'm not exactly sure if that's right. Okay, some of these are wrong. Okay, they can be accessed even at runtime. Okay, it doesn't really make too much sense to me, but whatever. What happens when execution results in system error? It's created and thrown by the .NET runtime. So it won't crash it, but it will throw an error. All right, and yeah, that one's right. Okay. The type of exception determines the information it contains. All right, let's move on to the actual knowledge check. What is code debugging? Process to isolate and fix bugs. What is a debugger? Used to observe and control the execution flow. What happens when execution results in a system error? .NET runtime creates and throws an error. What is the purpose of catching an exception? To take corrective action. What is the relationship between the type of exception and information it contains? The exception determines the information it contains. All right, and those are all right because we just had those questions. Okay, complete the module and correctly answer the FreeCodeCamp question. What is the relationship? The type of exception determines the information it contains. Let's move on to the next training. Implement the Visual Studio Code debugging tools for C#. I probably could show you how to use the debugger in Visual Studio Code. Okay, let me show you how to use the VS Code debugger. So we have this run and debug line over here. If we click on this, we can run and debug. I thought I installed the dev kit before, but maybe not. Yeah, actually, I'm not going to show you the Visual Studio Code debugger because it just is not working. I can't get the extension installed. And when I hit the run and debug thing, it tells me I need to for it. So it's not going to happen. So let's just answer the questions they have and go from there. Yeah, and all these questions are about the UI of the debugger, and I don't even think we can answer these without showing it. So I'm just gonna see if there's other questions we can answer. Yeah, it's like how do we set a breakpoint? How do we disable a breakpoint? All this stuff we can't really do. What is the name attribute for launch configuration? What is the pre-launch task attribute for? What is the console attribute used for? Maybe I can show how to use the debugger on a JavaScript application. That might work. I'm going to try and show the debugger on my Sudoku solver for FreeCodeCamp and see if we can get it to work then. Here I can set breakpoints. So I just click to add a breakpoint. So if I run the debugger now in Node.js, then here it stopped at body parser JSON and I can tell it to continue. All right, right up here, which you can't even see. Okay, now you can see it. So there's this continue button. If I continue, then it will actually run all the tests and stuff, and it will start it, I think, maybe. Listening on port 3000. Oh, finally, I got this debugger to work. I had to make sure it was run script start. And now it stops at this API solve breakpoint. And because it's running the tests, and it can't complete this test without going through this breakpoint. So now we can like see on the debug console, I think, or we can see somewhere what the value of puzzle is. Okay, so yeah, right now puzzle is undefined, and then I can kind of step through this or continue. If I hit continue, it will go to the next breakpoint. So now it's at solve string, and the puzzle is still not complete. And then after it does solver.solve, then it goes to the solve string, and it becomes solved. So we get all the numbers, and then it moved on to the next test. Again, puzzle is undefined. So a couple of those had invalid characters, so they were res.jsoned out right away with an error. But yeah, basically the debugger just helps with stepping through the code and making sure everything is what you expect it to be. It's a little bit nicer than using console.logs everywhere. Anyway, let's see if we can answer any of these questions. A developer updates launch config. I don't even want to do these questions. Let's see if the knowledge check has some decent ones. Okay, which section of the run and debug view is used to track the current point of execution within the running application? I'm just going to say, I don't know, the watch section. Which of the following options can be used to set a breakpoint? You just left click on the column. How can a developer disable a breakpoint in VS Code? Right click the red dot and select disable breakpoint. What is a conditional breakpoint? I would say probably this one, when a specified condition is met. How can a developer create a conditional breakpoint? Probably toggle conditional breakpoint somewhere, or this one maybe even. In a launch configuration file, what is the console attribute used for? Probably specify the type of debugger used. Let's see. Okay, this one's type of console, and this one is the call stack section. Okay, whatever. Don't expect anyone to know these really. Oh, my module is incomplete. God dang it. I actually have to answer these questions. All right, there we go. We completed that module finally. Let's see what the FreeCodeCamp question is. Which section of the run and debug view is used to track the current point of execution? That would be the call stack section. Okay, hopefully the next training is better. Implement exception handling in C# console applications. Yep, so this is with try, catch, and finally. Okay. Which of the following answer choices lists the C# keywords used for exception handling? That would be try, catch, and finally. Throw actually can be used too. Or maybe not. This article doesn't have anything on throw. What does the try code block contain? It's the code that may cause an exception. What is the purpose of the catch code block? To handle the exception, log it, or ignore it. What is the purpose of the finally block? To clean up any resources that are allocated in the try block. Yeah. All right, let's see if those are right. Yes, they are. Try code block contains the guarded code. The catch block contains code that exception is caught. The finally block is used to clean up any resources. Okay. All right. When is an array type mismatch exception thrown? Okay, it's probably this one, when an attempt is made to store a value of one type in an array of another type. When is a divide by zero exception thrown? When we try to divide an integral value by zero, that makes sense. When is an index out of range exception thrown? When an attempt is made to index an array outside the bounds of the array. When is an invalid cast exception thrown? Attempting an invalid cast. When is a null reference exception thrown? When attempting to access a member. No. Null reference. Whose value is null? Okay, yeah, so it is that one. And all of those are correct. They're kind of self-explanatory with the names of the exceptions. Implement try catch exception handling. Move on. Okay, finally, the knowledge check. What does the try code block contain? Code that may throw an exception. What is the purpose of the catch block? Handle, log, ignore. Index out of range. We just answered all these questions. Index is outside the bounds of the array. Array type mismatch. That would be this first one, made to store a value of one type for another. What is the name of the base class that all exception types inherit from? That would be exception. Which property of an exception object can be used to determine where an error occurred? Stack trace. What is the recommended approach for catching exceptions? I'm going to say catch only the exceptions that our code knows how to recover from. What is the name of the specific exception type that occurs when attempting to divide by zero? Divide by zero exception. Let's see. And we got all of those right. Okay, awesome. Let's complete this module. Get me out of here. Okay, next thing on FreeCodeCamp. What is the array type mismatch exception? When an attempt is made to store a value of one type in an array of another type. When should a method throw an exception? Okay, we didn't do this yet. Let me see the training. Create and throw exceptions in C#. What is the purpose of the stack trace property of an exception object? To track the origin of the exception. Which of the following code lines provides an example of customizing an exception with contextual information? Okay, so this one, we actually give it a custom message with the quotes. The graph data method received data outside the expected range, so it should be that one. All right, yep, those were both correct. Move on. Knowledge check. A developer needs to create and throw an exception. Which of the following descriptions is correct? I guess the exception type that they create depends on the coding issue. When should a method throw an exception? When it can't complete its intended purpose. A developer needs to create an exception object that includes a specific message property. Which of the following statements is correct? The message property should explain the reason for the exception. Obviously. And yeah, those three were correct. Complete the module, see the FreeCodeCamp question. When should a method throw an exception? When the method can't complete its intended purpose. Next training. This one is a guided project. Just give me the questions. Code C# is not working inside VS Code. Microsoft should probably fix that. All right, what is the purpose of catching an exception? We already answered this question. To take corrective action. What is the relationship between the type of exception and information it contains? The type of exception determines it. What is a conditional breakpoint? Breakpoint that only triggers when a specific condition is met. When is an argument out of range exception thrown? Argument out of range. Value of an argument is outside the allowable range of values. What is the recommended approach for catching exceptions? Catch only exceptions that our code knows how to recover from. All right, and all of those are correct. Awesome. Complete the module. Check the FreeCodeCamp question. When is an argument out of range exception thrown? When the argument is outside the allowable range of values. Next training. Debug a C# console application using VS Code, another challenge project. How can a developer create a conditional breakpoint? Right-click and add conditional breakpoint. In a launch configuration file, what is console attribute used for? Specifies the type of console to be launched. Which section of the run and debug view is used to track the current point of execution? Call stack. Which of the following options can be used to set a breakpoint? You just left-click on the column. And those are all correct. Complete the module. See what the FreeCodeCamp question. Which of the following options can be used to set a breakpoint? Left-click the left side. All right, there we go. We should get our trophy. Yep, it says we have it. So I can verify it. And yes, our trophy from Microsoft's learning platform was verified. All right, that was Debug C# console application. It's kind of a shame that I couldn't really show you exactly how to use the debugger inside of a C# application. It was just like in a weird JavaScript application. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer, but next up we are going to do the exam. So I hope you stay tuned for that video and I'll see you next time. Peace out. Bye.